I have a very special guest today, Kenon Chen, who is the Executive Vice President of Strategy and Growth for Clear Capital, who is the regular columnist for the Housing Wire, member of Insider's Workforce Innovation Board. I want to talk about that. Team lead in FHA Tax Sprint, sorry, for 2023 and 2024. And he is a regular on various conferences that I visit as well. He speaks on various panels on appraisals and AVMs and other fun stuff. He's a well-known guy in the industry. Keenan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's great to be able to do this with you.
Nice. Are you in California now?
I'm in California, in the Bay Area.
Nice.
So,
Must be good weather compared to East Coast. Very hot and pretty intolerable. I hate it, but I wish I would be there with you.
I won't rub it in, but it's like 76 degrees all week this week. So,
Love it. Well, there's a lot of things that I wanted to talk to you about. We connected at the conference. I think it was MBA secondary, and I said, "Listen, Kenan, you got to be on my podcast. We need to touch on U.S. economy, U.S. housing market, capital markets." Believe it or not, I always thought that the volume that you process through your firm, Clear Capital, is a good indicator on where we are with the origination market, with the housing, U.S. economy, with the mortgage markets, and with the loss mitigation market. So I wanted to start with your views on overall U.S. economy and where do you see U.S. economy this year and maybe even starting next year.
well, it's it's been an interesting ride, to say the least, as to where the economy is this year, especially we think about housing, right? We since 2023, I think every year we've said this is it. This is the year where we're going to see, um, some increased growth. This is the year that we're going to see, rates come down. Um, and and rates have been stubborn, right? This year, we're still hovering, near 7%. Apart from a pretty quick um blip there in April, where we saw like a kind of 1 week where we got some relief. Rates have stayed, very, very steady at, 6, 8 and higher. And, and while at the same time on the um, loss mitigation, default, side, we've also seen very continued low delinquency rates, right? Especially on GSE loans, a little bit higher on delinquencies for FHA, but for you know, which means that um, there's been not a lot of inventory coming either from distressed properties, coming on the market, and there also hasn't been a lot of growth in sales for fair market, sales, um, either, because folks are hanging on to their 2.7 percent mortgage rates, and they're locked in. Um, uh, but then, yeah, the slowness of home buying because of the higher rates, also means that we're seeing more inventory come on the market, which is a good thing. But um, uh,
So Kenan, the yeah, from your perspective with the lens of Clear Capital, anytime you have a purchase or a new originated loan, you need your services, right? For the appraisal. Anytime you have a loss meets based on the latest FHA mortgagee letter, you need your services. And I'm not sure what the frequency of that is. Is that every month? Every time you need to originate HELOCs or close in seconds, you need your services. well, different from the appraisal, I guess, AVMs, right? And then every time you sort of you refinance, you also need your service. So you kind of control all the gamut of loan origination and purchase market. So can you comment on the volume in the past year and what you expect in the next year through your lens on sort of on the trends where you see things are picking up versus things that are sort of stuck and down, and obviously that department is probably suffering. So can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. For us, we follow the property wherever it goes, right? So our goal is to enable, confident decisions um on uh on finance transactions tied to the property by giving, a clear understanding of the property's value, condition, trends, characteristics. Um, so certainly, we work within the real estate market and helping real estate tech companies, alternative finance um, uh, providers and investors make good decisions. We help lenders and originators, um, yeah, capital markets, loan servicers, and we follow it all the way back around again, right? Um, so the it's fortunate for us in that you're right. If one area is maybe slower or struggling, there's always opportunities in other areas. But the bright spots right now is certainly everything revolving home equity lending. Second lien products are just really strong right now because of the incredible amount of equity and tappable home equity out there in the market. Um, this year we have seen some good capital markets activities as well. With both um, on the private label side, so non-agency like non-QM lending jumbos. Um, there's also a lot of interesting activity going around with investment properties with DSCR loans. We're seeing some growth, in that area. So there are all these bright spots that are certainly happening right now, even while mortgage rates remain high and some of the traditional purchase and refi volume being a little bit slower.
Understood. So really, just to clarify, on the HELOCs, on the closed-end seconds, and AGIs, I think people are opting to do an AVM, right, through Clear Capital. And in fact, believe it or not, today I spoke with a lender who will be a common client. They use something called Clear Prop, right? Is that the product?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So see,
Wow.
I I know your product already. Yeah, so they're pretty thrilled and they're switching to you guys. So that's pretty exciting. And we're gonna see that through my TPR firm, the review of the AVMs. And for the capital markets, I don't think AVM is good enough, right? You still need a full blown appraisal. Um,
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because, if you remember going back before 2008, before the housing finance crisis, AVMs were used really commonly. There was um, quite a high usage and adoption of AVMs at the time. The problem with those models at the time, though, is that you know, um, they they weren't able to keep up with rapid market change because of the availability of data, and how long it took um, to refresh those models. Um, took a long time. So when the market really changed during the housing finance crash, um, everyone moved quickly away from those models and needed to get boots on the ground, real time understanding of properties. But since then, there's been a lot of change and innovation to AVMs. The big one.
by the way, let's define what AVM is because
Sorry.
some of
So,
yeah,
and
yeah.
thank you. AVM is an automated valuation model. So instead of a human going out and collecting data and doing, comparative analysis and all the things that a licensed, real estate professional would do, a computer model is is doing that. And it used to be, right, that it would be someone creating statistical models for every area of the country, trying to create the right statistical model using regression and other things to, like, produce an automated result. And then AI comes on the scene, right? And starting with, machine learning. And, we embraced that back in 2018, where we saw it's now possible to have one model, right? That learns and adapts, for all the different permutations of what's happening around the country, which is a huge advantage because now instead of maintaining 50 models to try to get accurate results around the country, you can refresh one model. So now we can refresh our model daily if we want to, but certainly we refresh it weekly so it can keep up with the market, keep up with market change. And there's all this data available now on a near real time basis as well. So we can have fresh data and update the model quickly. And
Kenan, I
so,
have so many questions. Just to drill down to what you said. All right. Let's start with the Mr. Obvious question. Why would anybody use you versus just Zillow, right? Zillow is free. People are using Zillow right and left. So that's sort of part one of the question. And part two of the question, what do you fit into the model, right? What parameters, especially in today's market, right, where it's so many unknowns, it's so, hard to predict where the prices will move because it's by jurisdictions, by states, by cities. Florida, you predict 10% down in somewhere, I guess middle of nowhere might be 50% up, right? So let's start with the Zelo and maybe cover what do you fit in the model to be more accurate.
well, I think you have to look at, well, why is that? What is the purpose of that model? Like, what is it intended, to do, and how's it been designed in a way that enables its intended users, right, to be successful and to make confident decisions. Um, uh, you know, our goal as a valuation company is to give people, again, to enable confident decisions on financial transactions, right? Like, so we've designed our model to be used uh in a lender grade, underwriting, a tool, um, for lenders, which means that we've tested it against appraisals. We've tested it in situations where there is no listing, no recent listing. The property is not on the market. So in a refi scenario, in a home equity scenario, we've really thought of it as something that needs to be explainable as well, right? So we provide things like a forecast standard deviation and a confidence score so that we're telling you how probable is the actual value to be within our, a range of our prediction. And that's just a different approach. It's designed for lending. It's designed for, you know, um, accuracy against an appraisal or a sale benchmark. Um, so that I think that's what differentiates it, and I think some other in the past, other companies have taken the approach of saying, "Hey, for marketing purposes or things, where you're just giving someone a sense of the estimate on their property, it's okay to have a less accurate value there to just get a ballpark, and then we'll give you the more accurate value when it comes to underwriting." We decided to take a different approach and say, "Hey, we don't want there to be missed expectations or friction in the process where, I go to my favorite portal and I'm like, oh, this is what my house is worth. I'm going to act on this because I want to, get out a home equity line of credit or something." I go to take action and I fill out my loan app, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, that's not actually where the value is. And now you've got this friction in the process.
How do you solve that friction? I mean, that's a very typical scenario, right? Where the homeowner says, "Oh, my house is worth $1 million," and through Clear Capital, you report it to be, I don't know, 800,000. Ooh, there's a $200,000 delta, and the homeowner will knock to lender's door and blame you for providing lower value. How do you reconcile that?
It's a pretty simple fix. It's like just show them the same quality and highly accurate value in the marketing process as you do in the underwriting process. And make it, easy for folks to consume, you know, consume the accurate value up front, but show them the same value when they get into underwriting. And so we've actually built tools and APIs that allow you to recall the same value you showed during marketing, recall that same value and add on the additional supporting information you need at any point in the process. Um, it sounds like a simple fix, but like for some reason people weren't doing that. And so, you know, we've kind of taken that approach.
So let's come back to the model, right? So we talked about Zillow being just a absolute estimate, just a ballpark, um, which is inaccurate and probably cannot be used for underwriting purpose. And we're saying that clear capital modeling is much better. So, what makes it better, right? What parameters are you feeding into the LLM models or AI models to educate the estimate engine to give a more accurate data than just an estimated?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if I would say I just think it's kind of apples and oranges. So like I don't know if it's a straight better or not better comparison. I think that they're just different two different approaches and two different products for two different purposes. Our goal is not to um show a value um to give someone just an estimate to let them know what ballpark that they're in. Our goal is to give confidence with our values and only show values that we are confident in. You know, um, and uh, so I think one of the things we've focused on is number one, yes, the data is super important, ensuring that you've got near real time market data coming in, ensuring that we've got, great coverage of the data. And we've put a lot of time and, close to a decade's worth of time just ensuring that our market data is coming in as quickly as possible and that it's standardized and uh, you know, things like our valuation expertise, right? Like, having a valuation company, but also being a technology and analytics company means that we can, incubate and test our own ideas internally and make sure that they're actually working well before we present them out, to clients. So that's been a big part of it. And then, like I said, like early on, we embraced AI. Early on, we embraced machine learning. We embraced, computer vision early on, and ways that we could, um, uh, quickly iterate on ideas and quickly test ideas. So by being able to refresh a national model within a few hours, we are able to test more ideas in a year than some companies have done their whole entire existence. And that let us go from having something that was maybe, started out at one place accuracy wise and quickly go to the top um, against other models.
Kenan, let me just tell you one thing that will give you a lot of props to Clear Capital and what you guys are doing. Um, I hear more and more in the capital markets that you are the best company for appraisal and getting the values more accurate. And we have a common clients which you know about,
Mm.
right? That swear by you, right? They say that we only would use Clear Capital. We don't recognize anybody else. So obviously, you guys are doing something right to get that rap on the capital markets.
Well, that's I mean that we love hearing that. Obviously, um, we I would say we're nowhere near done yet, right? We have a team uh that is pushing for more and more accuracy, every day. They're not very satisfied staying status quo. They're continually looking at new ways to take it even further, from here. And um, that's maybe the fun thing I think about being in this industry, right, is that um, it never stands still. It's never boring, right? Like there's always, you know, um, new new potential, if you will, to realize. And as technology is changing so quickly, and I'm here near Silicon Valley, right? Like, within housing finance, we don't necessarily have to invent, you know, the new technology. We can let big tech sort of pioneer, tools and techniques and that. But then we get to benefit from it once it's honed and ready, to improve accuracy, improve, innovation, to increase the accessibility to data. Um, so yeah, never.
It echoes the same thing as I always say. You want to be behind the bigger guys. You don't want to invent your own libraries. You want to use Google's, Amazon's, Microsoft libraries. Let them develop it, and then you benefit from it by adding apps on top of it. So that's a motto of any successful business that is playing with AI. That actually leads me to an interesting point. Um, we talked about at the conference. We talked about satellite imagery analysis of pictures, Google Earth, Google Maps, SpaceX, or I don't even know where the images is coming from. Do you use the imagery today? And if not, do you plan to use it in the future?
We've used, aerial imagery, in some way, shape, or form since, since the early, 2000s. In fact, I think the first time that we really started focusing in on the power of aerial imagery was, during, Hurricane Katrina. If you remember, uh, this is what, 2004, 2005. Um, and, uh, uh, with the flooding around, New Orleans and everything, there was no way to get in, for inspectors to get in to see even what was going on with homes, in the area that were affected by the hurricane. And the only way you could really see within a short amount of time, see what's going on with property condition and damage was through satellite imagery. And so a lot of companies retasked their satellites at the time to do more often, uh,
Refreshing the pictures, yeah.
to refresh their pictures. And we actually, at the time, we built a brand new product within like 48 hours. We built it over the weekend to have analysts look at the updated satellite imagery, do analysis on property condition from looking at those images, comparing it with other information that we had about the property. So we had before and after, um, and helped our clients, figure out what to do, during that. And so, this way of thinking about, like, how do we derive, data and information and current condition from, uh, uh, you know, aerial and satellite imagery has been around a long time. It's just now with computer vision capabilities and AI, we can now do that across the country, in a more, automated way. Um, we, you know, we think about it as, um, we need to have kind of a suite of products, if you will, or a cascade of ways of finding out what is the current property condition and helping out our clients there. Um, so on the aerial imagery side, we've partnered, um, uh, with a product that we think, is pretty amazing at using flyover imagery to determine, roof condition and yard debris and things that indicate what's going on with the property. But we also have our nationwide network of, real estate professionals that can visit homes in all 50 states and the territories and quickly get an understanding there. So if there's no aerial imagery available or it's not recent enough, we can send someone out and still quickly get an answer. Um, and and then we have, of course, the ability to do AI from all the property images and data that we have too. So, um, yeah, I mean, we're on this path of saying, um, give us the address, and we can get you the we will get you a property condition answer, and we'll go for the fastest possible path that meets your requirements, but you'll always get an answer back. So you have both the certainty and the speed, along with that.
So I wanted to make 2 points here, which is quite interesting. First is, as listeners of my podcast know, one of my companies is Pro Title USA, where we do unrecorded municipal searches. And as a part of the search, we look for the permit violations and code enforcement liens against the property. And at least two of our clients combine the reports that have the satellite imagery for the holes in the roof, for the old car in the backyard, for the pool with the municipality code enforcement liens to clean up the trash outside of the house, old car, and marry them together to verify that if one place, at least in a city or a township, tracks some sort of a violation, the same would be reflected on the imagery of the property. So that's sort of where you marry things from the two worlds of paper, which is on my side, to the property valuation and property imagery together and reconcile that both of them agree or should agree for that matter. That's sort of first point. And let's see, the second point was yeah, I think I know the company or sort of the partner that you're referring to. The results are phenomenal, right? So it's an ability to analyze the picture with a computer vision, right? It's a pixel by pixel analysis. And what's interesting, and let me know if that exists already, but certainly it's an idea for our listeners. Um, if I'm a fund and I know that there was a Hurricane Katrina that affected this property, or there was a tornado, or there was a fire, wildfire in California, and that property, I have a satellite image which was done after or at the time of the natural disaster. I now have an alert on the new imagery. If everything's clean, I still want to make sure that the property is still preserved correctly, and therefore it affects the value of the property today. Right? Was the permits taken out to repair? Uh, did the roof? Was the roof replaced? Or just painted over. Things like that. That creates a very interesting dynamic to not only look at the computer vision of the property today, but also have a historical look back on what happened during the natural disaster. So
Mhm.
maybe those products exist, or maybe it's already a part of the clear capital vision. Um, can you comment on some of those ideas?
Well, I think there's a couple of things with that. One is yes, these are all point in time observations, and they become kind of the timeline or the history of that property over time. And our goal is to you know, um, have what we're calling a single version of truth about a property. We've just recently launched um, a data as a service offering called Property Nova, where we are bringing in these different property data sources, and bringing them together in a way that yes eventually creates this single version of truth. And all that means is that it's it's what we know about a property in a actionable timeline where we've done the hard work for you to say, okay, we understand that this source said, this was going on about the property, or it's this square footage, and this one says it's something different. How do you reconcile all those pieces of data together in a way that lets you make a confident decision as of a certain effective date, right? And, and what we've seen is that, speed really matters in these situations. For instance, lenders might have an open pipeline, right, of loans, and a certain portion of them is affected by a disaster. Well, they need to quickly make a determination. Has that property been affected or not? Can they close this loan or not? Or do they need to take some other action? So these things, becoming more real time, um, becomes more and more important, especially if you're using an automated valuation model. So in a case of like a home equity loan, and you're getting your value instantly. Well, why wouldn't you want to get property condition instantly? And why wouldn't you wanna get title instantly? And why, right? Like, you see how, like, you can start bringing these things in a way that creates a much better customer experience, because you're not asking them to, like, "Okay, I have this, but I don't have this yet, so just hang on there, like, we'll see if this comes out okay." It's like, no, like, people wanna know right now, "Am I good to go? Am I clear to close?" Or not.
Yeah, I agree with you. I always thought of loan origination should mimic Amazon delivery. I applied on the app. I want the money, right? Then the order is received, and then the money is deposited. That's it. Three steps. What happens under the hood? uh, The buyer should not, or the borrower should not care about, right? You just deliver the loan. If everything checks, now, granted that you have to have an access to their bank account or to their, you know, IRS database or IRS transcript, so all of that should be authorized, but it should be as simple as Amazon delivery, right? Property conditions should be on a fly, title should be on a fly. I think slowly we're moving in the right direction, but it's a bit too slow in my mind.
I am terribly impatient at, waiting for, if I pay for something and say, "Okay, I've made the decision, I'm getting it," and I have to wait, like, multiple days for it to show up, it drives me crazy. I love, there was a comedian that would talked about the idea of, like, Amazon Now, where it's like, I want it the second I hit buy, I want it in my hamper, like, maybe I'm a little too impatient, um, but it does, you're right, though, but it does drive this idea of, um, you know, why we don't have to accept things as the way they are today. We don't have to accept that it just takes 15 days, to close, or it just takes a week to get an appraisal, or, whatever. Like, we, we're in an amazing time of having incredible access to data, and incredible ability to process data and imagery, into actual information. Mobile technology that allows data to be gathered on site using your phone. Um, Incredible compute, power and cloud computing and all. I mean, this is the time to tackle some of these challenges and not accept that it's just been that way for 30 years. It doesn't need to be that way anymore.
All right, you just brought up a few ideas to the listeners. If you want to make a lot of money, focus on the app for doing the borrower self valuation by taking pictures. And the pictures will probably be compared to the blueprints or the plat maps that can be retrieved automatically, and making sure that this is the right property. And it'll be dead on valuation based on what you see inside and outside of the house. All right, so good luck with that idea. It sounds very interesting. Um, I'm sure that some of the prototypes are available today. One thing that I wrote down here. Let's talk about drones, right? Using drones for valuation. Do you see that as a future of in person or in drone valuation, where you have a local centers per city where the drone fleet will fly through the property and take pictures, and then you have the most accurate values possible.
Well, I think whenever I think about drones, and we experimented with it pretty early on, and looked at, all kinds of different ways to, um, bring the home to the desk instead of sending someone to the home, right? Um, during, the refi boom that happened around, Brexit timeframe to 2016, 2017, rates dropped, and there was this sort of, rapid, refi boom, and we saw pretty quickly that, that appraisal capacity was not able to keep up with the demand. And so, especially in, like, the Pacific Northwest areas, like, Washington, Oregon, et cetera, we're seeing, like, 6-week turn times for appraisals, seeing, people stuck in hotels, because they couldn't, close one transaction and get the next one done. And, and that was one of those moments where it's like, there has to be a better way, and there has to be a way to bring the home to the appraiser or bring the home to the desk, to the person at the desk that needs to look at the data. So drones was one of the things certainly that we looked at um, uh, 360-degree, cameras, everything that was on the market at the time, Matterport and all these different things. And the problem with all of it is like as soon as you say drone, it requires an operator, right? It requires a pilot. It requires someone else other than the thing collecting data who has special training, who has maybe a license, right? Who has um who has to think about weather conditions. Um it adds, and then that drone is specialized. So it's a cool idea, but when you think about the logistics of rolling that out nationwide, and the same thing, for like 360-degree cameras or special hardware, that means you need a tripod. That means you need some sort of attachment between that and your phone. It means that you need to, walk through the house in a very specific way and take, stock and put something down and let it do its thing and then move to the next room and and so all of that to us wasn't good enough. It wasn't simple enough. And so we started to look for technology that would allow you to just use what's already in your pocket, which is your iPhone or Android phone that you already know how to use. Like everyone knows how to open up a camera on a on their phone and take video or take a picture. And and our quest led us to this company called Kubicasa, that had already figured out um, how to use any phone to walk through a home, capture it, and generate an accurate understanding of that property's characteristics, floor plan, and all of that. And we partnered with them and then acquired them in 2021. And so now embedded into our data collection apps is this app that literally anyone could use. Right now, you can go to the App Store, you can download Kubicasa, zero training, doesn't matter what phone you have, and you can just, scan a home and come back with accurate information.
Do you work with the insurance companies on the claims
There's
when there's a
all
flood?
kinds of applications for it. Yeah, insurance is certainly one. Um, but um, but right now it's used in real estate quite a bit because it's now become something that's super easy for real estate agents, brokers, and photographers to use to get a floor plan that they can put on the listing to help sell the home faster. Um, so yeah, it's pretty incredible where things have gone. But I'm saying all that to say, going back to your question about drones, is like, for the inside of the property, maybe there's room for drones on the exterior, just like we talked about flyover imagery and things like that. But do you really want a drone operator trying to operate a fly through on the inside of your home when you could just do it yourself with the phone in your pocket at any time?
All right, I'm putting on the shelf the idea of Tesla's self-flying drone. You know, okay, I'm putting that on the shelf. That's, I guess, not going to fly. Um,
Nope, no pun intended.
okay. By the way, one thing that you said, it triggered right away a question in my mind. You said the phrase "source of truth," and somehow my mind connects it to blockchain.
Mhm.
So I'm sure that you're probably thinking the same way about utilizing blockchain to store the values, especially historical values. Is that where you see the future of mortgage industry going? And do you currently see anything related to blockchain?
There's certainly a lot of promise there, and I mean, I'd almost ask you that question because since title is one of the, I think, been, the focus for early adoption of blockchain, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But um, you know, the the question is what are we ready for as stepping stones? What's the journey, from here to there, and and what problems are driving the use of particular technology? And I think for the mortgage industry, it was like a leap too far if you will, to go straight to blockchain as the solution without really defining what are the problems and how can those problems be solved, now versus in the future. Um, so and then once AI really took off as uh, you know, the world kind of opening their eyes to generative AI when ChatGPT came on the scene and how that could then be applied to things like marketing and sales and, you know, things that drive revenue up front. You saw everyone's attention shift, really quickly to that. Whereas blockchain is it really talks more about the infrastructure, right? And then the benefits become then after you've kind of, changed your infrastructure. But um yeah, I'd be interested to see if you think that, is title the place to start for blockchain where where we see the benefits faster and can use it for other areas?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, we should really do a reverse podcast where you interview me on on AI, title, blockchain, and it's a long topic that we can talk for hours on. But certainly, title is one of the places. But anytime that you have to create a profile of something and maintain the historical data, which we call source of truth, in other words, it's for simplicity. It's a website. You have a key, you log in, and you say, "Well, I want to see what the title looks like today. How about yesterday? What about the clear capital values? Today is this, and yesterday was that." So it's a on the fly adjustments of the property, the mortgage, so any unit of something, and that's being maintained, and there's a lot of data feeds there for the smart contract to know the tradability value, right? So everything is tradable in US. Welcome to the United States. uh, Buy or sell anything, right? So what is the value? And it's an instant definition of what the value should be, based on a source of truth from various data sources, right? So
Mhm.
that's in my mind, that's sort of the smart contract definition, which will open the doors for a lot of tradability aspects and velocity of money moving through various classes of assets.
Yeah.
So to me, there's a huge benefit for putting the various sources onto that smart contract. Um, are we there yet? Absolutely not. There's only maybe a tiny percent of companies that nibble at the blockchain. Redwood and Ian Ferriero at Liquid Mortgage. But again, the amount of loans and amount of stuff that they put in the smart contracts, very limited, right? So we need to do more and develop more. We need to have more regulations, etc. So we'll probably spend more time on the reverse podcast on
Hey,
that.
friend,
Yeah.
certainly have you on our podcast. I mean, value, obviously, value changes and fluctuates based on the market, right? And and then also, the property itself, there isn't like a specific point in time where you can say like, okay, the property is this, and then at this, preordained transaction, the property will be this. It's like the property is constantly, especially when you talk about condition and maintenance and all those things, it's constantly changing throughout. So, the, I think it'll be interesting to see, for us, the first problem that we're trying to solve is um, different data sources have different uh, standards and methodologies by which they observe a property. And so we want to help bring those together in a way that helps people say, okay, I have a good understanding of what this property is at this point, that enables me to make a decision, based on that information. Um,
So,
so
Kenan, here's another idea for our audience. This is a killer idea. I need to. Maybe I should not say anything, but um, if you are updating your models almost on a daily basis, and you have a list of properties that you're modeling for, if I am an investor and I have a portfolio of 1,000 loans or 100,000 loans, to have a daily review of the values of the property with the historical and forecasts in the future, I think that's very invaluable to me as a portfolio manager. So basically, it's a property registration for that daily update, either through the smart chain, blockchain with the logs or historical logs, and the look back and the forecasts, right, based on some of the LLMs that you're feeding. So we just came up with a great idea to do a monitoring service on values for the portfolio using the daily updates with the smart contract. So there you go. Anybody who listens to us has a free idea right now. Talk to me first, and maybe I need some royalty too. Um, but this is a sort of a capital markets, U.S. economy, AI, mortgage podcast, which is the only podcast that we're going to talk about music. Why? Well, Kenan, that's every time I see you, I wanted to make sure folks know you're a musician as well. You have your music out there, and you published your or you have your CD out, right? So first of all, how do you manage fighting for every penny on evaluation space versus the music, which is very artistic? It's a conflict of personalities, I guess. How do you manage all that?
I suppose it is a bit of a conflict, but I've always thought of it more as a compliment. It's just the way my brain's kind of always worked. But in college I studied computer science and music, and but there's something about I guess the commonality for me is um they're all languages, if you will, right? Music is kind of a language, and it has a framework underneath it. It has specific rules and things. But you're also allowed to break the rules, and that's where it gets interesting. Is when you kind of break the rules that are there and do things that are outside of that. It's where you can employ creativity right on top of this framework to do something interesting. And it's the same way with technology, right? Like there's rules, there's languages, there's frameworks, and but you don't have to follow them exactly the same way every time. You can break the rules a bit, or you can find ways to combine different things together to create a better outcome. Um, and so one always inspires the other for me. I kind of have to keep doing music because it helps me stay inspired to do other things, um, and then fortunately, like if I do a good job with other things like clear capital, then I can do music for pleasure and and not be a starving artist. So yeah, I've done it at different points of trying to have a career with it. At this point, I enjoy putting out music because it makes me happy and I like sharing it.
What do you think about AI music, like Udio and other applications where you can just tell the AI, create me a piece with the style of Bob Marley and talk about my company, right? It does phenomenal job. So, what do you think about everything that is involved with AI creation?
Oh, what an interesting time where, where AI, you know, um, can use, where you can use your is it the right side of your brain, left side of your brain? Use the creative side of your brain. I never get it right. Uh, uh, but with technology, right, to create things, I guess I don't worry too much about it, replacing, right, authentic expression that comes from us as humans. And in fact, I kind of see it as like it's just another tool that can spark new creativity and new ways of imagining things that I wouldn't have done otherwise. So like I put out a series of albums based on the four seasons. They're called, Electric Winter, Electric Spring, Electric Fall. Um,
Four Seasons Vivaldi or Four Seasons just
just
related to Four Seasons?
I I I I just got challenged to like write music for every season and put out an album, not knowing that I was gonna try to do that all in 1 year. So I don't know why I did that, but I used AI to generate all the album covers, and I used it for some of the ideas around lyrics and things like that. Um, and uh, and it was actually really cool because, again, it would take it in a direction I wouldn't have done by myself, and once it was headed that direction, then I kinda took it back over again and say, "Okay, the AI generated that, but now I'm going to take the results and edit it again, tweak it again to infuse, my own, thinking and creativity into it." And so it was like a interesting partnership I had with AI that, yeah, I think was kinda fun. It yielded different results than I would have done otherwise.
That's very cool. Cyborg approach.
Exactly.
No, it's very cool. In fact, I do appreciate what you're saying. My youngest, Christina, my daughter, just performed in Carnegie Hall. She won the first place in the international competition, piano. So yeah, I'm very proud of her.
Yeah,
She hates doing it, but as a dad, I'm forcing her. You got to do it because it's so creative, so beautiful, and you'll appreciate it in the future.
that's
Um,
amazing. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you, Kenan. Well, we're close to a wrap. I do wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast where you touched a lot of topics, gave a lot of ideas to my audience. Like I said, if you think that those are ideas valuable, don't forget to pay royalties to me and Kenan for generating those. Certainly, I hear a lot of good things about Clear Capital. Some of my key clients using you guys, and they're very, very happy. They don't want to switch to anybody else. Even though there's a lot of players in the market, I think you stand out. So again, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.